about. So, unless you guys have been spending too much time following, I don't know, Wendigoon drama and the fact that they finally found the backrooms photo, which was kind of interesting, you probably have heard that Donald Trump was found guilty on every single thing that he was accused of in the New York trial, which I personally found extremely surprising. I was not expecting this outcome necessarily. I personally thought it would be a mistrial or hung jury. I think it's more likely hung jury, just because from what I've seen, especially like from the outset, like a month or two ago, of people talking about the case, I thought that it was going to be a hung jury. Some people would probably be extremely likely to think that Donald Trump was guilty of the crimes that he was accused of, but in general, there wasn't really a clear, I don't know. I think the case wasn't so convincing that they'd be able to get a unanimous vote on that. So the fact that they arrived at this conclusion so quickly was pretty surprising for me. But I did want to go through some excerpts on all of these news articles that I've gathered, just so we can talk about various facets of this whole situation. So first of all, we've got from Fox News the fact that Donald Trump was found guilty. One thing I found interesting, I don't think anyone else talked about this. Hey, Melanie Landa Verde in the chat. If you join the Discord below, you'll be able to be seen on screen in the offline chat. And also you can use TTS to send messages that will be read out loud. So just want to let you know. One thing I found interesting was that not many people were talking about this, but I've been hearing the 4 years of jail phrase bandied about, right? That like Trump could be facing 4 years in jail. Well, it's not just 4 years in jail. It'd be 4 years per every crime that he was found guilty of. So in total, that would actually be 136 years. So Trump technically could be facing 136 years in jail. Not sure how likely that is, but you know, it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, another interesting facet of this case is the fact that he's going to be sentenced on July 11th at 10 a.m., which is just 4 days before the start of the Republican National Convention. It says here where he is expected to be formally nominated as the 2024 Republican presidential nominee. So this means that he would be barred from going to the RNC, the Republican Party convention. You might have to dial in. You might have to call in. Now, presumably, he would be under house arrest. I think that is the most likely scenario if he ends up getting any jail time at all. And, you know, it's not going to be that hard to call in to an event like the RNC when you are under house arrest. You just, get a laptop and log into Zoom. It's still going to be disappointing, but it's not going to keep him from participating in the event entirely. Now, one thing I found rather interesting was this quote here. So this is from Stanford's website. They had brought on a former prosecutor, David Sklansky, and asked him a couple of weeks ago some questions about this case. And one of the questions that they asked him was this right here. Actually, hold on. Where is it? Where's the question I'm looking for? Oh, yeah, here we go. So here's the question that Rich Ford asks. David, what do you think about the overall strength of the case and the importance of the case? We've heard from some commentators that this is a weak case. It's a stretch. And we've also heard from some commentators that it's a trivial case. What's your assessment? This is David's response. I don't think it's trivial. It's certainly not trivial politically. That's true. Falsifying of business documents is something that the district attorney's office says is taken quite seriously in New York, and they're right that it's a charge that's often prosecuted. What's unusual about this case is that the falsification of business records is being prosecuted as a felony, and the falsification of business records is only a felony in New York if it's done to cover up or to further another crime. One difficulty with this case is that it's never been crystal clear what the underlying crime is that the district attorney's office is saying Trump's falsifications of business records was designed to cover up or to further. That's one potential area of trouble for the prosecutors here. The other potential area of trouble is tying Trump personally to the falsification of their business records. But my guess is that the jury is not going to find that difficult, because ultimately the jury is not going to think that there's a good chance that all of these people were falsifying business records and Trump didn't know anything about it. Trump doesn't come across as the kind of person who would be uninvolved while other people were falsifying business records. So my guess is the jury will believe that their business records were falsified and that Trump was in on the falsification. I do think that there is a potential problem with the jury being convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that that falsification of business records was done to cover up another crime, and Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, had signaled in opening statements that one of his arguments will be that even if Trump has done everything he's alleged to have done here, it still wasn't a crime. If I had to bet, I would say that the jury ultimately will be convinced that this was done to cover up another crime, but the theory that they have to follow in order to find that is a little convoluted, and I think that even for most lawyers who have been following the trial, it has been a little difficult to figure out exactly what the DA's theory is. Now, this is a very interesting answer, and it kind of sort of lines up with a lot of legal analysis that I've seen online, kind of leading up to the verdict here in this case. Now, when it comes to like the whole falsifying business records, I personally don't think that he falsified the business records. I think a lot of people, generally speaking, a lot of people are negatively primed against Trump, so they're more likely to think that Trump falsified a business record because Trump is involved than if he wasn't. However, the thing is, Trump basically the scenario is that David Cohen went and paid Stormy Daniels to sign an NDA, and then Trump reimbursed David Cohen for that. Now, when he wrote down what the payments were for in the checkbooks, it was basically written down as a legal expense. Now, the general consensus among a lot of people in the mainstream media is that this was falsifying the business records because it wasn't a legal expense. It was to pay off Stormy Daniels. I think the thing is, though, is that you're paying someone to sign a legal document. So, in my opinion, it is a legal expense, and a legal expense is very broad, right? It could technically involve anything in regards to money, or like any sort of not money. It could technically involve anything that is involving anything to do with the justice system or anything to deal with legal processes. And an NDA is a legal document, so you're paying someone to sign a legal document that could be viewed as a legal fee. Like, I don't know exactly what the people who think that was a crime or that was a falsified record would want him to write down. Like, should he say NDA payment? Like, it's not clear exactly what granularity Trump would have had to written down this payment as in order for it not to be considered falsifying a business record. And honestly, at the granularity that they would want him to write it down, I'm not even sure if it would even have been effective, because it would have basically laid out what he was paying Stormy Daniels off for, theoretically. And that would just leak the information out anyways, because someone would find the financial record and, that would be that. So I don't even think that he falsified business records, although I do understand that because it's Trump, a lot of people are negatively primed to believe that that's what happened. Now, it's not just the falsification of business records, though, that is at play here. It's also falsifying business records in order to, commit another crime. Now, generally speaking, I think that if you look at the way a lot of people are approaching this case, it seemed like a lot of people thought that Trump was trying to break some sort of law. Now, what people don't agree on is which law Trump was trying to break, and it's kind of hard to back up a claim that 100% Donald Trump was trying to violate some sort of law. Now, I think the primary angle that they were trying to do in this case earlier on, I didn't follow this case all the way through to the end, was that, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I think the main thing that they were doing at first was saying, oh, well, this is to illegally affect a presidential election. So if you're trying to, tamper with or change the result of an election using certain means, and that's illegal, and therefore that means that you should be, prosecuted for that act. Now, the only thing is that there's no smoking gun at all. There's nothing saying, ooh, there's no like writing on any sort of napkin or anything where Donald Trump was like, ooh, I'm going to pay off Stormy Daniels so that I can win the election. Like, there was no sort of communication or anything that Trump did this with any particular special aim. I think generally Trump has claimed publicly that he did this to protect his image or protect his family. That's really the most evidence that we have pointing to something like that. And so it's for these factors that I was pretty surprised that they arrived at a unanimous verdict so quickly. In a unanimous guilty verdict. I thought that there are always going to be enough blue on people that I don't think Trump would ever be able to be, unanimously found not guilty for any sort of crime that he's brought up under. But this is generally considered the weakest case that Trump is being brought up against, which I think means that there is a significant chance that Trump is going to be found guilty of everything else that he is being prosecuted for, which frankly, hold on, let me do this here. Which frankly is not good news for Trump at all, especially considering that many of these cases are state level cases. They're not federal cases. Hold on, let me see here. All right, there we go. Let me do this right here. And it rolls. Sorry, here, just trying to figure this out. My apologies. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. Sorry, the person who was in the YouTube chat just joined the Discord, so I needed to go ahead and give the person the privs. There we go. All right, cool. So now Melania knows that he or she can go ahead and start talking into the chat. But yeah, so. It's a bit strange that they came to this conclusion. I frankly would not be surprised if they ruled the way that they did, just because they figured that eventually they're going to be unmasked, and if they end up being unmasked, they don't want to be attacked in the streets by crazy blue and on people. If you look at the breakdown of the jury, they didn't seem to be particularly biased against Trump. I feel like fear of reprisals from haters. Like there was the case with that one cop who kneeled on that one dude's neck. I think that was a very similar case where it's like, the jury probably arrived at their conclusion because they didn't want to get, a beat down by a mob, but like a Black Lives Matter, or of similar ilk mob. They probably didn't want to get attacked, so they ruled the way that they did. That would not shock me if that's the way that they arrived at this verdict. But in any case, not even on the jury here, just the fact that they kind of stretched so far to turn this into a felony without the necessary basis, I think is not great for multiple reasons. It's very clearly politically motivated. Like we know that Alvin Bragg was campaigning on trying to get Trump in jail, or not in jail, but prosecuted at the very least, if not convicted. So it's all not great, and particularly because I think, frankly, if they dig into this enough and appeal this enough and have enough people dig into this, it'll be quite apparent that this was not done in the proper way, and this very well could be thrown out entirely, and it could end up being a mistrial years down the road. Not anytime soon, like not within the next year or two, but I think years down the road, this might end up being thrown out or have to be retried. They should have just kept this as a misdemeanor, and I think it would have been an easier case to make, frankly, because of all the stretches they needed to make. But this is not the only angle to take a look at when it comes to this, because now that Trump has been found guilty, we now have to answer the question, well, hey, will Trump be facing some jail time? Now, I looked up this here, deferred sentence, because I have heard of deferred sentences before, but very generally. Now, there are very specific rules when it comes to sentencing in New York, and that's what matters here because this is a state prosecution, not a federal prosecution. So, let's see here. So, in New York, they don't have deferred sentences. So, what they have is actually, hold on. Do they have a deferred sentence? I don't think they have a deferred sentence. Now, Trump isn't eligible for a deferred sentence, by the way. This is because he pled not guilty. So in the United States, it says here, a defendant must plead guilty to at least one of the crimes they are accused of in order to receive a deferred sentence. The promise of a deferred sentence is often traded in exchange for a guilty plea in plea bargains. So Trump is not going to be getting a deferred sentence at the very least here. Now, in New York, they do have something called ACOD, which is short for adjournment in contemplation of dismissal. What this basically means is if you're on good behavior, if you don't get to any more trouble, particularly legal trouble, then after 6 months, then the conviction will be wiped from your books. This is a possibility. I don't think that this is likely, in part because of how this has been, how this case has been going, and also in part just because Trump is allowed now to like to say brash things. Basically, anytime he gives a speech, a lot of the blue and on people are going to be like, "Oh, he's getting himself in trouble, or he's doing something that is problematic." So I don't think that Trump behaves in a way that even if AOCOD was something that would be considered, Trump would be deemed as eligible for, because it'd be unlikely for him to not run afoul of the folks who would be scrutinizing his behavior to see whether or not he is actually in trouble or not in trouble. So this is possible, but I don't think this is particularly likely. Now, some analysts think that it's likely that Trump will be given house arrest. I think I found it in this article somewhere. It said, this is from CBS News. Is Trump going to prison? Want to know about the possible sentence after his conviction. Yes, here, what to expect from sentencing. The minimum sentence for falsifying business records in the first degree is 0. So Trump could receive probation or conditional discharge, a sentence of no jail, or up to 4 years for each offense. Trump would likely be ordered to serve prison time concurrently for each count, so up to 4 years in total. I don't know if it's 4 years in total. We did read the Fox News article that said 136 years maximum. The judge couldn't sentence him to anything between 0 and the max, Horowitz said. So he could sentence him to a period of months in jail. He could sentence him to a period of weeks in jail. He could sentence him to a sentence where he is required, for example, to go to jail every weekend for a period of time and then serve the rest of his sentence on probation. Yeah, there's a lot of wiggle room here. In an analysis of comparable cases brought by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Norm Eisen, who has written a book about Trump's 2020 election-related federal indictment and served as special counsel in the first impeachment of the former president, found that about 10% resulted in imprisonment. So, if this was any other guy, it'd be very unlikely that Trump would be facing jail time here. However, and they note this here, but the circumstances surrounding the case make any across-the-board comparison difficult, right? So because this is Trump, there probably is a far higher likelihood that he will be given jail time. Now it says here, Trump could also be sentenced to home detention. By the way, when I say jail time, I'm including house arrest, because if you're under arrest, you're under arrest, right? You're in jail, you're in jail. So I'm including house arrest when I say jail time here. Trump could also be sentenced to home detention, where he would wear an ankle bracelet and be monitored rather than going to jail. Horowitz suggested that a home detention sentence, which walks a middle ground between no punishment and a stint in state prison, might be the most likely outcome. It would also satisfy Trump's unusual security and political situation. That also is true. Now, I do think that, depending on how the judge feels about like the state of the country and how much he cares about how things might go, if he puts Trump in like a typical jail, I think that could change things too. So, for example, if the judge is like, you know what, I want Trump to suffer and I want to make the MAGA people mad, then he might put Trump in the traditional jail. But if he's like, you know what, I think Trump deserves jail time, but also we have to consider the fact that he might win the election and we need him to be able to actually perform the duties of President of the United States, and then house arrest, I think, would be kind of the more likely outcome. And actually, I read this already, but that's basically what the analysis was here. A home detention sentence would also make it possible for Trump to continue campaigning virtually with the ability to hold news conferences and remain active on social media. Throughout the trial, Justice Juan Merton stressed the importance of allowing Trump the ability to campaign and exercise his rights as he seeks another term in the White House. But it's part of the equation that the judge must weigh in his decision. Yeah, so he's already saying like, yo, he's got to be able to campaign at least, which is a good sign. So he hasn't gone all the way overboard yet, but we'll see what happens. In an interview on CNN after the verdict, Trump attorney Todd Blanche was asked if he expected prosecutors to see jail time. I have no idea. Blanche replied, "Look, there's a system in place that where you rely on precedent, and somebody like Trump should never face a jail sentence based on this conduct." That is also true. So there's a lot more there that we could get into if we have the time to go through all of it. I personally think that Trump is likely to face some sort of jail time. Wouldn't I be shocked if the jail time stops up until the election, so that if Trump ends up being president, then he ends up being able to go to the Oval Office, go internationally, for typical visits of various world leaders, all that stuff. That would not shock me in the latest. However, part of me is like, if you looked at generally all of the things when it comes to going after Trump, stopping short of like violence or calling a hit out on him, it doesn't really seem like the Democrats have pulled any stops, right? Like every time they'd be like, oh no, there's no way they would do that. That'd be going too far. Feels like the Democrats have always gone that far. So with all of that in perspective, don't put it past the judge to put Trump in an actual jail. Don't put it past the judge to sentence Trump to 136 years of jail time. Would that be extreme? Yes. Would that be strange? Yes. Would that be absurd? Yes. But I think you could probably say a lot of the same things about this entire case. So don't put anything past the judge. I think that's important to do. Otherwise, most people would be taken aback, like many people were taken aback by this ruling. Just do not put anything past these Democrats. I believe the judge in this case is a Democrat. I could be wrong about that, but I think so. Now, I think considering all of this, how far the Democrats have gone, this also brings up another problem, which is that Republicans might end up doing the same thing out of revenge. Mediaite published this article here saying the federal CEO calls for Republicans to drop lists of Democrats to put in prison after Trump verdict. It's a Sean Davis. Looks like the egg dude from The Amazing World of Gumball. But here he has a post from X saying, in 2016, the presidential race was decided based on candidates releasing lists of potential Supreme Court nominees. In 2024, I want to see lists of which Democrat officials are going to be put in prison. This is what happens when you cross the Rubicon. So very clearly calling for revenge here. I don't really like this. I know a lot of people are cheering this on the right. I personally think I'm at the very least right of center, if not conservative. But I think that this is frankly too far. We shouldn't be, doing things out of revenge, prosecuting people because we were unfairly prosecuted and all that stuff. But I do understand why people are doing this, right? And some people might be, oh no, that's too far. Well, I mean, Trump has been treated in ways that one could very easily say is too far. If this was not Trump, Trump would not be getting. If this was not Trump, then he would not be getting prosecuted point blank, period. I think that's pretty obvious to the vast majority of people, especially considering his status as a rich businessman who has had a lot of success in the state of New York. It just would not be done. So, so when you consider the fact that you have Democrats, mostly Democrats, not all Democrats, but a lot of people in this Democratic state using the judicial system to go after Trump because they don't like him. When you put all that into focus, and then you see that those people are successful, what precedent does that set? That sets the precedent that, hey, if you get enough people in a specific state level judicial branch who don't like an individual person for political reasons, that you could just go after that person and convict them for fun. Like that's literally the precedent that's been set here. And so people are going to be acting all surprised that Republicans are going to start doing unjustified lawfare against Democrats. And while I will stand with the Democrats in saying that that's wrong, I'm also going to be pointing the fingers at Democrats, being like, where were you when we have all of these politically motivated AGs and judges and justices going after Donald Trump because they don't like the man, right? Where were you? It's very easy to be like, oh, this is an unjustified prosecution for political reasons when it's someone that you like, right? Like, I don't know, Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. But as soon as it's someone that you dislike, you treat the situation differently. It's just ludicrous, and I wish that people would take those biased glasses off, and just understand that one of the dangers of going these lengths to attack people that you don't like politically is the fact that could very easily come back to bite you. And that's honestly why I'm strongly anti-authoritarian. I'm not libertarian, but I am a huge small government guy, because whenever you give the government to do certain things, generally speaking, even if that thing is good, that power will be turned against you by the opposition party when they get power in 4 to 8 years. And so the same thing's going to happen to the Democrats. They've been messing around. They're about to find out that when you've green-lighted the judicial branch of states to go after someone for political means, then that power is going to be used up against them, because the precedent never only swings in one direction. It will always swing in the other direction once the other political party has all the power. So it's a shame that we've come to this, but that's the natural result of prosecutions such as this. Now, the last question I think a lot of people have in mind, especially with a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm more likely to vote for Trump now because he was convicted. Or a lot of people who are trying to, keep this in mind when it comes to determining who they're going to vote for. Is this question that is posed by Politico here: can Trump run for president while in prison? The answer is yes. So it goes down here, says here, this person, Debs, ended up running for president while in jail. And then, of course, there's the more important question, I think: what happens if an imprisoned candidate actually wins? And there's no clear answer on this. Trump's escalating legal troubles are resurrecting that question. He has been indicted in New York for falsifying business records, a state crime that carries a maximum of 4 years in prison when charged as a felony. Many experts contend that even if Trump is convicted, he is unlikely to see prison time because judges rarely sentence first-time offenders to prison for that type of felony. They might actually say, hey, this is not a first-time offense because he did this, 14 or 36 times or whatever. But 3 other ongoing criminal investigations of Trump, one in Georgia for election interference and 2 from special counsel Jack Smith in Washington, could trigger more serious felony charges and carry a higher risk of prison. A Trump electoral victory from behind bars would open a constitutional can of worms, but the general view among legal scholars is that the need for a duly elected president to fulfill the duties of office would override a criminal conviction, require the sentence to at least be put on hold. And if Trump were convicted of a federal crime, he could even try to pardon himself immediately upon taking office, a maneuver that Debs himself promised to undertake if he won. I think generally the law seems to be on the side, right, that Trump could, in fact, pardon himself from a federal crime. It says here, then we're just going to get into uncharted waters. Seton Hall law professor Eugene Mazzo said, I don't think we have an answer to this. And that's basically all he says in that section. So we went over a lot in this video here, and I know that this is a huge situation. And by the time this video goes up, honestly, there might be more developments. I don't know. For all I know, the MAGA people might have firebombed the judge's house for all I know. Hopefully they don't do that. I've been seeing no indications of violence. I've been looking out for them. I haven't seen any, so that's been a very good sign. But one thing I want to know is, what do you guys think? Because I know that this is a very contentious issue. This was very much a legal case in limbo because a lot of legal scholars were like, this is kind of a weak case, especially when you're trying to crank it up to a felony. So I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think. Even if you guys are Democrats, I think there's a chance that a lot of you guys are like, about the verdict. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm very interested in hearing your opinions.